Hi, my name is Max McFarlane and I'm in photo media, studying animation and video. For this project, I want to explore how media and production processes are connected to the aesthetics of effort and nostalgia in animation. To that end, I want to explore and create novel animation workflows, employing textural multimedia in layered analog-digital processes of production. So, in short, through research, observation, trial and error, I plan to devise and test different ways of producing animation, using different combinations of physical media, computer programs, techniques, ways of recording and post-producing, and ways of display. I'll examine how different hybrids of multimedia and different combinations of digitization and analogization interplay with novel presentation formats like outdated displays, wall projection, and what have you, to produce emotionally familiar or emotionally foreign results. And using these methods, my work is trying to respond to some innate dilemmas involved with the medium of animation, which we'll get to a little later on. In previous work, I've played with multimedia animation, using composites of digital, 2D, 3D, live-action footage, paper puppetry, and so on. And in addition to that, over the course of this semester, I've started thinking about how different ways of presenting that final video can influence how we engage with work. I mention all this as a preface to the material approaches I want to continue with this project. In keeping with that, I want to leverage a variety of hybrids of physical media, focusing on texture and tactility. Much of my practice is concerned with the pictorial artifacts associated with production labor and nostalgia, so things like brushstrokes and scratches, color alteration under the camera, motion wobbles, cell shadows, and so on. The production of multimedia aesthetics like these kind of necessitate a negotiation between analog and digital workflows, because animation has to be studied, referenced, roughed, cleaned, produced, and post-produced in individual layers, and each of these stages may involve analog or digital intervention. I'm interested in extending and continuing this negotiation as part of that production. And this consideration also extends to display, which might be considered like a further step. I want to overall query how analog degradation or digital clarity or a mixture of those affect how we as viewers interact with animation. To do that, I need to conduct research into the works of artists and theorists operating in similar domains and review their aesthetics, processes, and ideologies. As a starting point, I reference the work of experimental animators like Norman McLaren and Len Lai, and the novel production methods of animators such as Nobuo Fuji, Lotte Reiniger, Frederick Buck, and so on. In tandem with that, I want to continue my theoretical research, branching out from the writing of Lev Manovich, who talks in depth about the hybridity of animation in the digital age and the ramifications of that. With this work, I want to pick at the conceptual webs of impracticality, effort, nostalgia, and aesthetics that entangle the practice of animation. In the modern day, hybridized animation provides fast-paced, streamlined workflows through computer assistance and digital graphics, and traditional 2D animation workflows are increasingly fetishized by an image-consuming public. So where can we place the value in the enormous human effort and sort of technical inessentiality of older animation workflows? Because traditional animation workflows, stop motion, paper puppetry, cell animation, you name it, so on, have undeniably created aesthetics that are unique to their mediums and irreplicable outside of them. So when those mediums have become obsolete, those precise aesthetics have died out with them. But the general idea is widely replicated. It's parodied, appropriated, paid homage, objectified in the hybridized digital media landscape of modern animation. There's this cultural longing for an analog past that remains historically, foundationally embedded in the digital present of animation as part of that medium. And another part of this dilemma, animation is historically and continually a medium entangled with the politics of effort, because movement can't be achieved without the work of many skilled hands in the ink and paint department of a 40s Disney studio, or in the outsourcing studio in India that Marvel uses for its CG. Conceptions and misconceptions of the economy of individual, group, or algorithmically aided effort in modern animation influence the scope of what and how images are produced, as well as how they're viewed. As an animator or someone aspiring to be an animator, the production of your work is essentially tangled in these dilemmas of process and resulting aesthetic that influence both your artistic goals as well as how the work is perceived by audiences. And here are some problems I've run into. So for one, I'm unsure about how I've framed the process that I want to undertake as an objective instead of the result, like the work that I want to achieve. While I was exploring my rationale for these works, I realized that the easiest times to talk about what I wanted to do with my practice were those that described the working process, and like how I included or excluded evidence of that working process played a significant role in the actual meaning of my work. But that said, I'm a little unsure about how appropriate that is to the concrete demands of a work proposal. Should I be attempting to firm up like a stronger image of what works I create using this process and what they might look like? Another issue for me was actually the rationale element. I've got a very big set of interrelated ideas that I want to background my work with, but I get the feeling that I'm trying to bite off more than I can chew with them. All of the ideas entailed in animation production, economies of effort, scale, aesthetics, imagery and texture and media of nostalgia are each individually very broad and very rich concepts. But comparing my existing practice to the ideas that I want to tackle, I feel like I'm barely scratching the surface of those ideas in a very shallow way. So another question I need to resolve for my IWP is, do I need to narrow my conceptual focus? And would that help my practice in the longer term? Finally, and maybe most significantly, I'm struggling to frame my work in context. In my method section, I've discussed how I intend to approach my research for this task, identifying a few key animators and writers. But beyond that, in terms of placing my proposed work in a broader debate, I'm finding myself a little bit lost. I think I've inadvertently mashed together my rationale and my context section. So to pose a question, would you say this brief was lacking in context and situation, or lacking in relevance and interest, or both?